Welcome to the Arena Decklist Podcast. I'm Jerry Thompson, joined by Brian Gottlieb. Roundup this week. You are still in New Zealand, but you're coming back next week, correct?
It looks like it. When it comes to returning from New Zealand, I do not count any chickens before they hatch. I hear there's like a solar storm ongoing.
Dude, that sounds made up.
Yeah, I hope it's made up. I hope that's not something that will affect my travel, but I just don't trust the airlines at this point. I don't know that I'll actually make it home. I'm trying to make it home because I have a pro tour to broadcast the week following. So I got to make it home. I have no choice.
To be fair, when you're talking about made up types of storms, I don't think it's the airline's fault necessarily. This seems like a New Zealand problem, or more specifically at this point, a you problem.
A fair criticism, one which I'm willing to accept. I may be some type of weather deity and just attracting horrible, unforeseen storms to my presence at all times.
Yeah. Next week should be back as normal-ish, maybe recording a day early because of this aforementioned Flesh and Blood Pro Tour. I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up.
Yep. Looking to take down the Pro Tour is Jerry Thompson.
No. I don't think they'll let me play.
Okay.
I don't think anyone is letting me play in their Pro Tours these days.
I would let you play. I'd angle hard to get you a special invite, Gerald, to the Flesh and Blood Pro Tour. And if that didn't work, I'd buy you an invite.
Oh, God. I didn't even think about that, man.
Yeah, you could. I actually think the deadline is passed, but you could have purchased a PTI to play this event.
No, I mean, I understand that now thinking about it, but yeah, I didn't even know that you angling to get me a special, like I've gotten some nepotism invites.
Oh, look, I don't think it's going to work.
Lifetime.
I don't think it's going to work for a second, but I'm still willing to try.
Yeah, because at some point someone will just be like, just make him pay the $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah, what's the problem here?
Yeah, you have the system for a reason. Anyway, I'm not trying to play at all, but I haven't seen you in a minute, so it'd be good to hang out. And that's about it. I don't know. I might know like 2 other people that are in the building, so that's cool.
Yeah, you know Tannen. You'll see Tannen, and that'll be good. And
yep, Tannen is one of the 2 people. I'm sure that there's another person that I might know.
That's about all I got off the top of my head. Matt Dilks will be there. You know him, so you could say hi to him. Tarek Patel, you probably know him. So there's a few faces around. So
I've seen Matt Dilks probably 20 times in my life.
Yeah.
And I've maybe spoken to him once.
Okay. So not one of the old homies.
Well, it's just technically I know him, but it's not like he is known for speaking a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a quiet guy. You got to kind of get under that gruff exterior before you get any words from him.
And I'm not there yet, unfortunately.
Yeah,
you know,
there.
Just gotta be Canadian to get in good, I guess. And I am not. Although from Minnesota, you know, it's like I should be honored.
Yeah, very close.
You know, used to PTQ in Winnipeg. Come on now.
Seems like it should count.
Other than that, set came out. Limited format is very good, Brian.
So I'm hearing some positive reviews, which excited to hear. Haven't experienced myself. Obviously, I have just no time. I maybe when I get back to the States and things settle down a bit more, after I immediately hop on a plane after 2 days of being home, I'll be able to try a little March of the Machine Limited. But I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it.
Maybe that's what we'll do in the hotel room.
Maybe could do that. I think we're going to bring the fight sticks as well. Look to play a little, Street Fighter and. Maybe some Melty Blood is what we've been playing in the hotels recently, my brother and I. So,
all right, check this out. River City Girls 2.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
Yeah, I played River City Girls 1. It was solid.
Okay. 2 has been out for some months and I haven't been able to play it yet.
Okay.
But I own it. And Gal Guardians, which is 2-player Castlevania, effectively.
Oh, that's cool. That sounds dope.
And same kind of deal. I played it I bought it, played it for like a little bit solo, obviously, because I don't have any friends, and was just like, is this what it appears to be? And the answer is yes. And it seems rad.
Okay. I'll also have to see if I can get those onto my Steam Deck so they're ready to go.
I mean, I could also just bring my Switch.
Also an option.
Fun little side note. When Cho was here for the Richmond stuff, I got all that stuff set up, and I was like, you know, game with me, and he's like, no.
Good effort. Good effort, bro.
Good old Josh Cho, my best friend. Won't even
Can always count on him.
Won't even play games with me. He's just like, I am gonna watch anime and fall asleep, and I'm like, I've seen this before. I feel like in another one of my friends, that would be you.
We've played some games with Joe before. I remember playing some Mario Kart back in the day in some hotel room somewhere.
That might have ruined him.
It was forever. Yeah,
it was those early days. Him and I playing like Bomberman, and I think later Mario Kart. When now we won't do it anymore. I don't know what happened.
We broke him.
I'd be down to play some kart though too.
Yeah, kart's always good.
All right, cool. I'm looking forward to this weekend, and I will watch you play Street Fighter. I assume 6 is out or coming out.
No, it's not out. It's not out yet. I actually play mostly Street Fighter 3 these days. Just kicking it old school.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll still bird while drafting on my phone or whatever. So
Perfect.
Cool. In the meantime, this would be a good week to talk results and whatnot, but it's pretty soon after the set released, so we don't have any.
Disappointing. I thought we'd have our first wave of results so far, and that's what I was anticipating talking about this week. It's kind of how we do things around here. We do our top 10 show, which of course we nailed perfectly, as we always do. And then we come around and we do our sort of results roundup. And it looks like we're going to delay that a little bit for something new and different. And it is actually very new and different.
But also something a little bit old. And that something old is fingernails, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're back in the fingernail game. I thought we were done with that forever, but somehow they've come back into our lives, and we're looking at fingernail picks today.
Yeah, so if people want to follow along, they can. I don't know why they would, but Aftermath got mostly spoiled. And by that, I mean like actually spoiled. The official previews aren't supposed to start until May 2nd, at which point they will conclude on May 3rd. But, this is like a 50 card set or whatever. So I'm not super surprised that preview season, in quotes, is only 2 days long. But I think we have 38 cards, one of which we've talked about. So 37, I suppose, to talk about. And if y'all don't want to listen to unofficial spoilers, unofficial previews, turn back now.
Yes. We talked about this a bunch. I'm sympathetic to the idea of not wanting to hear these. This set is out there, though. Everyone has seen these cards. Everyone's talking about them. I
mean, listen, that's not true because I just saw this today. So,
well, you're becoming a bit of a Luddite in your old age, and you're not plugged in to the Twitter discourse. But this was a hot topic in the middle of this past week, and I just can't imagine anyone who would want this information not having access to it at this point. It's readily available. It's on mythicspoiler.com. I saw the YouTube box opening, and the story behind this was somebody suggested, I don't know if it's still up. That's an interesting question. Somebody suggested they just ordered some March of the Machine collector's boosters, and they got March of the Machine Aftermath collector's boosters instead. And they cracked them open on stream, seemed to have little regard for the text of the cards that they were opening. Box openings sometimes are so weird. Like, certainly some box openers are like very passionate about the product, and that's sort of the joy of it. And then some are just like strange robots opening packs because at the end of that transaction you get some dollars in your bank account is all I can see. I don't know.
It certainly doesn't pay for the box.
No, it should not. Although in this case probably did, because I expect that this small YouTuber, I think they had like 1,000 followers when they started opening this box. I expect their YouTube page got quite a bit of traffic. And like I said, I don't know if the box is still up, the box opening is still up, but you could probably find it pretty easily on YouTube if you looked.
Yeah, I don't get it. I will argue that old age has nothing to do with it. Like, yes, I am old, and yes, I am very much removed from every bit of normal society. However, I don't think those two are related.
Okay, that's fair. You can certainly unplug at younger ages as well, and yeah, fair enough.
Circumstance, that's all.
Okay.
Anyway, 37 cards to talk about. We're just gonna try and bang them all out.
Yeah, some will be glossed over, just not very exciting, but other ones are exciting, and maybe we talk about sort of. We'll do a vibe check on this set to start things off. This is weird. It's an idea that 10 years ago I would have loved. Way to freshen up standard. I think that's cool once in a while. But as I scrolled through the 7 other variations, and I don't think I'm making that up, it's the core set, Aftermath. There's like the Multiverse Legends Distinguisher. There are showcase cards. I'm just scrolling down Mythic Spoiler right now.
I'm
Then
telling you, it
there
was the
are,
first one for me.
yeah,
So
yeah, I'm on it. I'm just saying what else is there in addition to the main set. There's Jumpstart cards for this set. There are Commander cards for this set. There are Invasions just cast aside, which is fine. That's actually just like in the set. Then there's also Commander Plane Chase associated with this set. So just a preposterous number of things going alongside this set. And if you go back a while ago where this would have been like very unique and novel and a way to get some more cards into the ecosystem, I probably would have given it 2 enthusiastic, hearty thumbs up. Now I'm like, dear God, please stop. We don't need this many cards. And the goal of this set is very unclear to me. These cards are strange cards, but we'll get to that.
yes, I mean, I do think it is storyline related. You know, it's just like, okay, where, how and where did like all these characters end up or whatever. And I think that that is fine and cool as far as releasing a mini set in between stuff to maybe freshen up standard. Well, we're not doing anything really standard related these days, and it's at the end of a format, so that's probably the least impactful that it could have been. So it does seem like a silly time to do it if that was your goal for just like a lot of reasons. But if they did stuff like this going forward, I would be fine with it. And yeah, it does look weird because it's, I don't know, just a bunch of like legends and whatnot, and
Yep.
maybe not necessarily cards that are pointed towards standard anyway. So I think that is fine. Like it's kind of like the you know, historic anthology stuff for Arena, where it's like you can't have hits in all the slots, but you still want to introduce a certain amount of cards. You know, it's like, say only 5 of the 40 we're going to see play or whatever. It's like, well, you don't want to just sell the 5. You might as well like put some random filler in there that also gets it onto Arena, and like, yeah, maybe someone likes this card and whatever. So out of 50 cards or so, they shouldn't all see standard play. So yeah, there's got to be some weirdness, especially if it's supposed to all look kind of like higher rarity stuff.
Yeah. And to the surprise of nobody, thus far, 13 legendary creatures destined to become commanders around the world. So we know where the focus lies. No change here for this Aftermath set.
Word. All right, I'm just gonna go in order. Uh, Wish we could stack rank the photos by, you know, max amount of fingernails in the pic to least, or I guess reverse of that might be better for my sanity. But you know, here we are.
Yeah, I'm sure
Uh,
next time this happens, they'll get that encoded.
yeah, that'd be great. But you know, Mythic spoiler, you know, they're kind of like bare bones, right? It's like you see an image, you upload it.
No Scryfall, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Starting with Narset, Enlightened Exile, 1 UR dub, 3/4. Legendary creature, human monk creatures you control have prowess. Whenever this attacks, exile target non creature, non land card with mana value less than Narset's power from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost.
I mean, this card reads fairly powerful in its abilities. It sort of has the classic problem you expect from a card like this with no immediate impact. And even like the creatures you control have prowess. It's hard for that to have immediate impact. It is theoretically possible. You get to late game top deck situations, 7-8 mana, play this, pop off with a couple spells in hand, and then you're juicing up your army, ready to go, which is an exciting application. I think this card probably shines brightest in commander settings where it has some time to set up, but the core of it is powerful. If there is a way to reliably connect with this card, or not even connect, just go to combat with this card,
Yeah,
I would
you
be
just
all
need to
about
attack.
its effect. Yeah, I would be all about it, but I think that's going to be a very big ask.
Yeah, ways to give it haste would definitely be very beneficial. But yeah, not super high on this one.
Yep.
Next up, Samit Vizier of Noctamoon, 1 RG. Is that 2/3?
Yeah, it looks like 2/3 to me, bringing back that invocation frame, so a little hard to tell.
Silly Amonkhet thing. All right, legendary creature, human warrior cleric, first strike, vigilance, haste. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, if that creature entered the battlefield this turn, draw a card. Well, this card definitely wants all of your things to have haste. So
Yeah, but it's not helping with that goal, and in and of itself, it's
helps itself.
it helps itself, but in and of itself, it's fairly underwhelming for its color combination and stats. I think 3 mana for a 2/3 first strike, vigilance, haste would have been a banger 15 years ago. And now it's just like, yeah, that's probably okay. And I could see some matchups where this card is important and you're trying to leverage the card advantage gained by Samit and other haste creatures you may have in your deck. But this is really more about like the cards that surround it and support it, and maybe it can fill a niche role of providing card advantage in a format where that's important, and playing against something like, I don't know, a blue-black control deck that doesn't exist and all of your creatures have haste. This seems like a very fine tool, but I don't want to build around this card. I just kind of want things to line up well for this card, and then I can theoretically maybe put it in the sideboard or two.
Well, what if you have like rabbit battery or some global way to give your stuff haste, then you just ensure that this is always on or whatever. But like even on its own, 3 mana 2/3 will likely cantrip, right? Because I don't know, presumably you're just not playing it on a turn where it's not going to connect, or at least you force like a chump block from them or something. So like 3 mana 2/3 first strike, vigilance, haste, ETB, draw a card, like that's not bad.
I think it depends so much on the shape of the format. Like if the format is about small creature mirrors, then yes, that's not bad. If the format's about efficient removal and big bodies, as I kind of think it is right now, that would be where I put the general shape of the format. Then I think this is relegated to sideboard fodder, and that's fine. That's a fine place for this card to be. Yeah, just isn't exciting me right off the gun smoke here.
It ain't bad. All right. Sarkin, Soul of Flame, 1 UR, 2/4. Legendary creature, human shaman. Dragon spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Sarkin become a copy of it until end of turn, except its name is Sarkin and it's legendary in addition to its other types.
There's so much dragon support and so few dragons that I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to play these dragons. But like the engine pieces around the dragons are awesome, right? We have the invasion. This card seems fine-ish, like just a decent body with cost reduction and sort of a lightning rod in a spot where your dragons are your very high-powered threats, but you can't afford to let this live because God forbid you skip up to your 5 mana dragons right away and then immediately get the benefit of that 5 mana dragon, whether it has haste or not, by turning Sarkin into it. So it's a really nice turn 3 into turn 4 if the dragons are good enough, and maybe they are. There are some good dragons out there. They're just not format defining dragons.
Yeah, I don't think the dragons are bad. It's like they exist and they're fine and they do stuff, but it's not glory bringer level of things where it's like you actually want to go out and build a dragon deck because of the actual dragons. You're right. Definitely right, where it's like the support cards make you want to look for what dragons exist because you just forgot that they existed in the first place.
Yep. A weird time to have so much dragon support, but maybe hinting at what we have coming for the future. And if we get like a very dragon centric set, these cards are going to be big players for sure.
Yeah. Kira, Sovereign of the Deep, 3GU 4/5, legendary creature, Merfolk Noble, Vigilance Ward 3. Whenever you cast a Kraken, Leviathan. Is it wrong that I just want to stop reading when I
No,
see
that's fine.
Kraken?
I think we've done enough.
I'm going to finish. Whenever you cast a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent spell from your hand, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's mana value. You may cast a spell with mana value less than X from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom. Yeah, I don't know.
Tell me that's not a commander card. Like, it's just a hard-coded commander card.
Yeah, just you wait. Just standard tier 1 Leviathan Octopus tribal.
I hope not.
All right. Nissa, Resurgent Animus, 2G, 3/3, legendary creature, Elf Scout, landfall. I have to actually click on this one because the fingernail is just too big.
In the way.
Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any color. Then, if this is the first or second time this ability has resolved this turn, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an elf or elemental card. Put that card into your hand and the rest of on the bottom of your library in a random order. This card rocks.
Yeah, this is the Lotus Cobra. I mean, like, Lotus Cobra is badass. Granted, can't stack it, cost 3. All very real complaints about a Lotus Cobra, but there's an extra ability tacked on here, and I think the ability is pretty generous, honestly, and it's very easy to see this card, doing snowball type things like Risen Reef, Omnath type setups are very much in range with something like this Nissa card. Reads quite powerful to me.
Yeah, first or second too is like, damn.
Yeah.
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah, double payoff, not bad.
And also a 3 mana 3/3 body is not bad.
All pretty good upside. Do you think this one could reach back to older formats potentially?
It could. I could see this in Pioneer certainly, and then I don't know, in the context of like, tier 2-ish modern elves or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe this shows up. You're talking about
elementals, possibly.
Yeah, you're talking about like actual elemental stuff. Maybe. I don't like just getting a free card, like, say it is Nissa and all elementals, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're either talking using this as a card advantage / mana engine in the more controlling lists. Well, if you're picking up like an Omnath or like a Risen Reef off of this, like that is good, but you still need mana to actually like cast those cards and commit them to the battlefield and everything. But if you're talking about like kind of the beatdowny Flamekin, Harbinger, Thunderkin Awakener type of stuff, like with a bunch of pitch elementals, I mean, anytime you get like a free piece of cardboard for that stuff, or just like a pitch elemental itself, that seems like really, really good. It just takes away all the downside, right? So I could totally see this being an engine for those decks. And like, yeah, they already have Risen Reef or whatever, but like you would very much appreciate a secondary engine. It's just,
absolutely. Redundancy is the difference between like tier 2 and tier 1. Sometimes that's all it really takes, is just the second option, a second way to do your game plan. So I wouldn't put down redundancy at all.
So this with the pitch elementals I like, as long as you're able to kind of ensure that you're either getting like a thing that you can use to pitch or the pitch elemental itself. And, it means maybe playing like 8 to 12 of them or something. And I think you could really start popping off with this card. That sounds sweet.
And I just want to be sure and stop ourselves before we spend too much time on this podcast. We do know these are modern legal, right?
I mean, as far as I know, this is just a standard set.
Meaning it gets to go back to all formats.
Right. Why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it, Gerald? I agree with you.
I mean, yeah.
So I can't wait to find out how wrong we are, but.
All right. Niv Mizzet Supreme, Wooburg, one of each color, 5/5, legendary creature, dragon avatar, flying, hexproof from monocolored. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard that's exactly 2 colors has jumpstart.
Yeah, this set is just future sight. It's just like all the keywords. We can do anything. Throw them all together. It's fine.
Yeah.
Weird. A weird thing to do. This is a weird set.
It is a weird set, but like, what do you expect? You're not going to get like Grizzly Bear Disenchant Giant Growth cycles in this crap, Ain't no room for that.
Yeah, just got to keep it weird. Is this a playable card? We talked about 5-color cards being like very attainable. These effects seem fine-ish.
I like that we go Sarkin into Niv, and the Niv doesn't even benefit from the
Doesn't work
Sarkin.
whatsoever. No.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I don't know. I like hexproof from monocolored is pretty solid. Obviously, there are still a ton of ways to kill this card, but
including a monocolored card in the set, by the way.
yeah, invoke, right? But yeah, it seems solid. But like I don't know. Even thinking like Invasion of Alara type of stuff is just like that sort of thing seems much better than random dragon.
Yep.
Even if it's dragon with some built-in protection. And jumpstart is you have to discard a card, right?
Yes.
Or discard a land specifically.
I thought it was just a card, but I could be mistaken.
I think it's any card. I think it's any card. So it's not like you're getting card advantage from this necessarily. You're definitely getting like a very highly tuned form of card selection. You know, say you have like a lightning bolt or something in your graveyard, right? But I don't know. I'm not super stoked about stuff like this. I'd rather have my 5 mana thing just pay me up front rather than promise me riches down the line.
Agree.
Nashi, Moon's Legacy, Sultai mana, BGU, 3/4, legendary creature, Rat Shaman, Menace Ward 1. Whenever this attacks, exile up to 1 target legendary or rat card from your graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy. That's just a thing now, huh? This is just like cutting room floor text.
Yeah, we use this now, but this card might just be good, actually. Like, I think these cards are... There's so many of these type of legendary creatures that I am inclined to sort of gloss over them. But, you know, we know one of the best decks in Standard, very much based upon legendary cards. Rats, of course. Very much based around legendary cards. 3-cost Menace Ward creature seems like a solid deal to me. We know that Ward 1 is quite a bit more disruptive than maybe we first gave it credit for.
Well, so yeah, compare this to Rafine. 4 toughness Ward 1. How often does Rafine die? And Rafine dies to cut down, and this doesn't.
Good point. You know? Excellent point.
If you want to just be like, yeah, how likely is it that this lives? Well, pretty likely, actually.
Yeah, and this can buy back your Rafine that has died somehow, should your mana be good enough. So,
or you can just loot away something with Rona on too.
Buy it back with this. Seems like a real card to me.
There's no like restriction on this. Like Narset has a power restriction. This is just exile a legendary
card. Just does it.
So yeah, Rona into this. You can like cast Koglas off this. Like who cares?
Yep, do whatever you want. And there's incredible legends in Standard right now. The Menace ability does a lot to help to survive combat multiple times. So very possible, I think, to get several triggers off your Nashi. This is going to be a late game house when things have stabilized. Play this card. I think it's going to get a lot of work done. Yeah, this seems like a pretty top tier card to me, honestly.
I don't know. Even if they do, double block, kill this in combat, if you're casting like a 6-drop with this, you don't really care all that much.
Especially if you've like managed to trade on top of it, or like God forbid you have removal spell and they double block with like fodder, big thing, kill big thing, destroy fodder, get your thing back. Like that's a huge swing, man.
Yeah, or you just you are casting Koglas with this and Flame Tongue Kavuing everything, make it so they can never double block.
Pretty good.
Yeah, wow. It's weird that there's no restriction. This is just an attack trigger, not like a combat damage trigger. This is really generous.
I think this card almost hides under the return legendary or rat card because you can like sort of skim through it and just be, oh, a rat card, who cares? But it's actually just a complete banger.
Yeah, like Kira's, Kraken, Leviathan, or just like any card or something. It's like, oh, you got me with the Kraken text.
Yeah, if only Cura did the same expansion.
Yeah, this card's great. Okay, Danitha, New Benali's Light, 1 G-dub, 2/2 legendary creature, human knight, Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an aura or equipment spell from your graveyard.
Wow, we're just going ham on these graveyards. No problem with that. That's never been an abusable mechanic and has cause no issues ever. So just let people have access to that at will.
I mean, this one, at least you have to pay the mana for the card.
Sure.
So not quite as busted, but yeah, I'm sure that there's something you could be doing. I think aura and equipment are pretty tame in comparison. They tend to ban like the skull clamps of the world and everything. So I don't know.
Also, just to be clear, you do have to pay the mana on Nashi as well. It's not the same as Narset.
Oh no! Oh wait. Oh, never mind. No, this card's not busted then.
It's still very, very good.
It's still it's basically like drawing a card.
I think it's better.
Okay, Narset is you can cast a copy without paying its mana cost. Yeah, yes. I was like, what the hell? I hate this text. Founding of the Third Path got me the same way, where it's like exile it, copy it, you can cast the copy, and it's just like, isn't this just Mizzix's Mastery or whatever? And it's like, no it's not.
No.
Okay, never mind.
It's got to have that little cheat. No. I was very aware of that the whole time we were discussing that card. I think it's very, very good still. That doesn't change my opinion.
Well, it certainly changes mine because I thought it was just straight busted.
The only reason you feel that way is because you thought it did something else. If you had it as your baseline, I think you would still be very high on Nashi.
No, I mean it's still the same thing with like, what I said about Danitha is like, well, you have to pay the mana cost for it. It's not, same thing kind of with Niv Mizzet. It's just like, or Ren's Ultimate, like we talked about that too. Just all of these things where it's like, oh yeah, like your graveyard is open season or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but all my cards cost like 3 and 2 and like are not abusable for this. And it's like same thing with Nashi. It's like, well, you can cast a Rafine off this, which is effectively the same as drawing a card, and we're talking about attacking with this on turn 4 and casting a thing. Like outside of Rona, what do you actually have that has died so far that you would like to cast? It's like everything kind of has to line up.
How about Skrelv?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
I think that's probably pretty good.
Assuming that they like killed your Skrelv and then just, didn't do anything else.
I don't know. I think the body on this card is quite good. And
Nashi is still fine, but I don't know that you get away from Esper to play this.
Maybe not. Maybe it's not worth splash and agree.
But there are also a lot of appealing options too. So maybe it's not just this. It's this and the other stuff that is coming.
Yeah, some other green cards, sure. But
yeah, I don't know, man. I don't like it. I don't like this text. F this text, but yeah, like even if it was just like attack trigger draw card, I would be happier with that. Is that weird?
It's weird. I understand what you're saying. I think part of the issue is we are so overdosed on text and like exciting features that while draw a card might just be good, it's not going to motivate people to be like, ooh, the same way that this text is going to motivate people to do like that kind of reaction. And that is why text like this is all over every single card in this set. And it's not ever, nor will it ever be again, just draw a card, which would be a completely functional ability.
Yeah. I mean, again, in the lens of like commandery type stuff, there is probably more exciting stuff in Commander you can do with this than in Standard, right? And like more abusable things. And maybe the rat clause has more meaning, although it's not like the amount of rats we have in Standard is non-zero or whatever, but
there are some rats.
There are some rats. There are some ravenous rats even.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Danitha, can we do anything busted with auras or equipments?
Nothing immediately springs to mind. Like you can have a okay removal-ish engine with like leyline binding, but that means that your leyline bindings have died. Or, I mean, maybe you could just do like
self-mill stuff.
Yeah, self-mill stuff for sure. But it doesn't stand out as very exciting to me. And this card is quite expensive. Body's pretty lame. So weird vigilance, trample, lifelink. I guess the goal there is to like do aura stuff. Oh, this doesn't even work, right? Because that's not an aura. Like that's just an enchantment. So you can't do like leyline binding.
Yeah, binding is just an enchantment, but like you can do like the old dead weight stuff.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
So
that has occasionally mattered.
yeah. And there's, I don't know, stuff like ossification or whatever. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, is there any like, ETB make mana type of aura thing where you actually just go up on mana or something, but whatever. Probably not.
Nothing comes to mind.
All right. Pia Nalar Consulate Revival? Console of Revival. A little bit of glare. All these cards appear to be foil, but they're buying like collector boosters, right?
Yes, so they all came from collector boosters.
All right. R-Dub 2/3, legendary creature, human artificer. Thopters you control have haste. Whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. I like this card quite a bit. 2 mana, 2/3. Thopters have haste is just value text, and then you have to combine this with some light up the stage type of stuff. But like we have the battle that does that pretty well. We have all sorts of like 2 mana exile the top 2s and stuff like that. Like it is not that difficult to actually get this thing going. And also like how much value out of this do you need, right? It's like if you get like a couple Thopters over the course of the game, that's pretty great. But I could also just see like that's mostly how you're casting spells.
That is pretty good. But you're exactly right that this card with the battle is very enticing to me. Like if your mana curve is just super low, the battle can conceivably dig you to a point where you find this Pia, and then you just toss a few 1s and 2s maybe out there on the turn you play Pia off that exile clause, and I think you have a very formidable defensive force because these tokens do have flying, so they're quite good on defense. They attack immediately, so you can just kind of pop damage out of nowhere. This card is cheap enough where, it's not a huge ask. It defends well enough on turn 2. I think there's a lot to like about Pia.
Legendary, white based.
Yeah, it's all just good text to me. And again, about the cards that support it, it's a bit of an engine, but if there is good support for this type of effect, I think this card is pretty good.
Yeah, this is definitely a weirdo sort of build around, as far as like,
especially in red white. It's very strange in that particular color combination.
Yeah. What part of this is white? Like white exiles your opponent's cards and lets you cast them from there, but like is there anything even remotely resembling that does it for your own cards?
No.
I don't know.
There probably is. It doesn't strike me as a very white card. I agree with you.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but yeah, it is kind of like a new build around sort of thing. But I like this. I mean, they've definitely been leaning into that sort of stuff as far as like red card drawing. Like rummaging is not very satisfying or just not very good, and the Ren's Resolve, light up the stage type of stuff, I think has been very satisfying. So this is cool. I mean, I guess Showdown of the Scalds was also that put counters.
That was red white. Yeah.
So that was white, but anyway, Jarina Dauntless General, B-Dub 2/2 legendary creature human soldier. When this enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard, sacrifice this. Humans you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This is pretty nice.
This is a real modern card, right? Like you just
as much as humans is a real modern deck.
Okay. Yes. In a world where humans is a real modern deck, this is a card that you would certainly play in that deck, right?
I have played worse versions of this in humans. Yeah.
Sure.
So this is great. I also said at some point last weekend, I just want us to go back to simpler times when humans was good and modern. So
I don't think that's happening as long as our buddies Fury and Solitude remain present.
I'm fully aware, unfortunately. Yeah, good card. If you are trying to do human stuff, you have a card.
Wow, I just saw a really exciting card coming up, but we'll get there. Just keep going.
Okay, I see it. Is it Plarg?
Oh, it's definitely Plarg.
Yeah, okay. Because whenever you sign into Zencastr, your name is Plarg.
My name has been Plarg on Zencastr for probably like 2 years now.
Since Strixhaven, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It was just like, what the hell are these cards? And yeah, okay, anyway. Well, before we get to Plarg, let's do Rocco's Street Chef. Naya mana, RG Dub 2/4 legendary creature elf druid. Beginning of your end step, each player exiles the top card of their library until your next end step. Each player may play the card they exiled this way. Whenever a player plays a land from exile, oh crap! There's more of it. Whenever a player plays a land from exile or casts a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and create a food token.
They're just choosing fucking words at random. You can't tell me, like, have you ever seen the episode of South Park where they make fun of Family Guy and it's just manatees like collecting balls randomly, and that's how they compose Family Guy skets? I think that's what's happening now. Is there's just manatees in a tank at Wizards, and they grab keywords.
It's Robo Rosewater.
They just put them together, and whatever comes out is the next Magic set.
I assume you've seen the Robo Rosewater Twitter account.
Yeah.
Okay,
they've obviously taken over.
More play-in lands from exile or casting spells from exile. This one not as fun because both players are getting paid, but commander each player, so whatever.
Enjoy and have some food on top of it.
Yeah. Okay. Plarg and Nasari. Who's Nasari? Do we remember? I mean, I guess
I don't even remember who Plarg is, honestly. Yeah.
Well, Plarg and Nasari is a legendary creature orc Ifrit. So Plarg is one of those. 3/RR, 5/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the other cards exiled.
I can't follow this. I can't. I'm done. I don't even know what you're saying anymore.
An opponent chooses a non-land card. You may cast up to 2 without paying their mana cost. Okay, so if it's 1v1, you both go until you hit a non-land, and then they say you can't have this one, and then you get the rest, or two of them. So if you're playing a 4-player game, such as
then you
Commander,
get 2 cards when that happens.
So yeah, if you're playing a 4-player game, an opponent chooses 1 to veto, and then you choose 2, and then 1 just gets burned. But in 1v1, they veto, you get the other one.
No, because you can cast 2 of them, right?
You can cast up to 2.
So if it's a 3-player game, then they say no to 1 and you get to cast both the cards, right?
Correct. I wasn't factoring in 3-player games because those don't exist.
No, that's very important to me. I care a lot about 3-player Magic.
Okay. Arnie Metalbrow. Arnie Metalbrow, 2R, 3/3, legendary creature, human berserker. Whenever a creature you control attacks or a creature enters the battlefield under your control attacking, you may pay 1R. If you do, you may put, I just fallen asleep reading this text. If you do, you may put a creature card with mana value less than that creature's mana value from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking.
I don't know what this, I still don't understand. I'm sorry. Like, I know this is like sort of shitty for me to just be like, I don't care, I won't engage with this, but the comprehension you're asking on these cards is fucking ridiculous. Do they not even think about readability or like, I don't know. I don't know how to engage with these cards. They just melt my brain repeatedly. And maybe I've just gotten old and stupid and I'm being dramatic and I should be able to understand this. And I'm washed as a Magic player. And that's why I can't put together exactly what Arnie Metalbrow does, but I can't. I'm sorry.
I think I get it, but also these are just SAT problems.
Yeah.
The text of whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control attacking should just be banned.
Do we really need it? Like, that's the question I feel like is never being asked, is like, does this card really need this? Is it worth
it? It does, because it's self-referencing.
But there's another way to do it. Like, I don't know, man. I just think, like, if that's the effect you want, then you have to ask, why do we really want this effect? Like, is if the problem is this is the only way to make this happen, then I'd ask a broader question of, is it worth making this happen in the first place?
I agree.
I guess they're just out of stuff. Like, frankly, like a game that's been around for 30 years, how many unique ways can you do things? And if you're not just reinventing the English language to suit your needs, then you're probably going to hit a wall at some point.
There's already like 2 unique sort of things, like playing cards from exile and benefiting, and then like Narset Nashi, like exiling stuff and casting copies, or like those are new things. I guess technically this is a new thing too. So like, swing and a miss sometimes, but this Arnie, the old Arnie from Kaldheim also did something similar.
I can't remember my old pal Arnie, to be honest with you. It's been too long.
Oh no, maybe it was a different thing. Old Arnie was like boast. You can change its base power to 1 plus the greatest power among other creatures you control.
A much more simple, elegant time.
Yeah. All right, let's get off our boy Arnie. Open the way, XGG sorcery. X can't be greater than the number of players in the game.
So 2 if you're playing a 3-player game. No, it's 3. It's 3 if you're playing a 3-player game. I'm sorry.
Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X land cards. Put those land cards onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. The bigger the game, the more
the bigger the spell.
The more options you have. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to taking this to my next 20-player melee.
Yeah, exactly. With your 1,000 card decks that you can actually take advantage of this.
Right.
Metropolis Reformer, 2 dub, 2 fingernail. Its toughness is decidedly fingernail. Oh no, the text isn't on when you click on it. Was it 2-3? What is that? What do you think? 2-2?
It feels like it's supposed to be a 2-3, but that fingernail is well and truly obscuring my view, so I'm not sure.
All right, whatever. This is 2 dub for a 2 something. Creature Angel Cleric, Flying Vigilance. You have X-Proof. Whenever this is dealt damage, you gain that much life. Well, how much damage can it take?
Oh, maybe it is like 4 in that case. Then that would be a very strong card if it's 4. Trying to see around the fingernail, but I just can't.
I don't think it would be that strong. I think it's a 2-3. I'm going to guess 2-3.
Okay. You have Hexproof is nice text sometimes. Very niche text.
Sometimes.
Gaining life is nice.
You remember the old blue-green Gifts Ungiven early harvest deck?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was extended. Heartbeat of Spring. And then you like brain freeze some people, right?
Yeah.
Person I know, as the legend goes, was playing in a PTQ. His opponent had a true believer in play. Dub 2/2 UFX proof, effectively. And this person looked to his friend in the crowd, winked, and then cast Gifts Ungiven.
How'd that go?
The kid allowed it to resolve, and then he searched up his combo and killed the small child.
Yep.
And then sold the slot in the finals.
Seems like a quality human being all around.
Yeah. So you have Hexproof, is it good text? I don't know, man. Like, you kind of have to remember, I guess.
But yeah, that's true.
That's it. That's my story. Just for whatever reason, there are multiple stories of people doing some shady shit and like winking to someone in the crowd.
Well, it's not cool unless you acknowledge it. Like, it's pretty reprehensible behavior if you're just like cheating to get an edge. But if you wink about it, then you're cool.
And it makes the story cool too.
Definitely does.
There was a Pro Tour feature match. Again, the gifts thing actually did happen. Like I was legit there for that. And I know the person in question. They would absolutely do this. The next story I'm going to tell, I don't know. I don't know if it actually happened. Maybe the actual cards that were played in sequence happened, but I don't know that the wink happened, right? So this is Pro Tour feature match. Well-known professional player casts Psychotog. Opponent casts Counterspell. Back to the other person. They cast Counterspell. Person counterspells back, and then
circular logic.
The person, who desperately wants their Psychotog to resolve, then madnesses a Psychotog or madnesses a circular logic off the Psychotog that's on the stack.
That's being
with
cast. Yeah, nice, perfect.
And then, of course, turns to the crowd and winks to their friend.
Oh man, that is.
And in case you were wondering,
right there.
in case you were wondering, the Psychic Talk resolved after all of that flurry of counter magic, and this person won the Pro Tour.
Good for them. Just
So
quality play.
Ayara's Oathsworn, 1B, 2/2, creature human knight, menace. Whenever this deals combat damage to a player, if it has fewer than 4 +1/+1 counters on it, put a counter on it. Then, if it has exactly 4 +1/+1 counters on it, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
Okay. I guess I can do these things. This card seems okay to me. It's weird. Again, like every card in this set. Strange,
I feel
like strange limiters all over the place, and I don't quite get all of them. Like, it doesn't seem like it needs to actually stop putting counters on itself. Like, let it put counters forever, but just let it trigger at a certain point, and then maybe you could save a little bit of text on the card would be my advice. But what do I know?
feel like 20 life is not enough for this to actually
Do anything.
trigger naturally.
2 + 3 is 5, + 4 is 9, + 5 is 14, + 6 is 20. But if you're playing the 3-player game, then you can distribute counters a little bit more broadly.
Exactly. All right.
Real
Deification.
3-player focus in the set. I was not expecting that when we started this podcast.
Yep. Deification, 1 dub enchantment. As this enters the battlefield, choose a planeswalker type.
So is that like a name? Do I name like Teferis and all Teferis?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Planeswalkers you control of the chosen. Nah, it's going to be like Siege. Planeswalker Siege. Planeswalkers you control of the chosen type have hexproof as long as you control a creature. If damage is dealt to a planeswalker you control of the chosen type, would result. What?
If damage
dealt to a planeswalker you control of the chosen type would result in all loyalty counters on it being removed. Instead, all but one of those counters are removed. Okay, so it's worship, deification.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I get it. Maybe they should explain the joke to me again, and then I'll be more receptive of it.
Yeah. Okay. Next card is Training Grounds, which is a reprint. Cool. Next card is
quite an expensive card, by the way.
It was. I don't know.
Not anymore.
I don't know what it is now, but yeah. I was building decks with like Pack Rat and Tassiger.
Yeah, I remember playing Training Grounds a bit. It was never good.
No. Leyline Immersion, 3G, enchantment aura, enchant legendary creature. Enchanted creature has ward 2 and tap. Add 5 mana in any combination of colors. This is my favorite portion of text of all the cards that we've read so far. Last portion of this is spend this mana only to cast spells.
At least it doesn't have that many words. I understand what the card does. It kind of makes me want to see if I can do something cool. Like, can I put this on something that can untap itself and go infinite? That seems pretty plausible that there should be those type of abilities out there.
Well, generally those are abilities, which
and
is
you have to spend the mana on spells.
Yeah.
What if I was using some type of ability that unlocked spells in some way?
Okay.
Would that help?
No. But also Godspeed.
What if I was using this to cast spells that untap things?
Well, then you could do that, but in theory, that would be finite.
Yes, it would.
You're going to run out of vitalizes at some point, you know?
Okay. Well, there's probably not much I can do here then, but I still applaud this card for being unique, easily understandable, and not having a lot of words on it. Thus far, it is my favorite card in the entire set.
Fair. All right. Tranquil Frillback. 2G 3/3 creature dinosaur. When this enters the battlefield, you may pay G up to 3 times. That's weird text. Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's ETB though. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, choose up to that many. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Exile target player's graveyard. You gain 4 life.
When you pay this cost One or more times. Choose up to that many.
It effectively has 3 kickers, but you get to wait until it resolves to pay.
See, I just think it's good to ask the question why sometimes. Like
with this card, I agree with you. I assume that since this is the text, this is the cleanest implementation.
Except kicker.
Again, functionally different.
But why? I have to stop. I'm going to drive both of us insane if I don't stop. So let's just go to the next card.
Okay, Undercity Upheaval. Ooh, Upheaval's one of my favorite cards of all time. I wonder if this one...
There's an Upheaval like card in the set. We'll get there. It's bad.
I saw that I was about to chastise you for saying it was Upheaval like. Anyway, 1 GG sorcery Undergrowth. This Undergrowth burned me bad. We're already off to a bad start. Distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard as you cast this spell. Creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn. This is not as good as the original Upheaval.
No, it's not. It does seem like you could build a deck around it, though, and it potentially be very strong.
Undergrowth burned me bad, man. This is one of the reasons why. You know why? This is a sorcery in your Undergrowth deck.
It is. If it's the only sorcery, and I have all my Bloodghast and Vengevines all lined up, maybe this is a good overrun effect? Question mark.
Well, that's
probably
you're
not.
still at about half. Like even if it's like 4 upheavals and 20 land, and 20 land is pretty low.
Yeah.
It's still 24-26, right? Or 24-36. So say you have 10 cards, you're getting like 6 counters for 3 mana. It's like on rate by itself, that is good, but is it good enough to play a bunch of like
justify the
Bloodghast and whatever, you know? You need so many cards in your graveyard to actually get over the threshold of like, oh yeah, I actually put like lands and stuff in my deck, and like these other crappy like payoff sorceries, and like Undergrowth is just yuck.
It's a big ask for sure.
Undergrowth should have been like X +1 like every time or something, you know?
Yeah, I could see that.
But it's so ugly to do it that way.
Oh, listen, that can't be a consideration. Have you seen every other card in this set?
I understand. I'm just saying, like, if it came down to like I was working on the set and it's like, okay, well, this is a solution, I would have vetoed it because it's ugly. But yeah, certainly once we get here, it's like, yeah, shit, whatever. I don't know.
Whatever.
Who cares? All right. Urborg Scavengers, 2B, 2/2, creature spirit. Whenever this enters the battlefield or attacks, exile target card from a graveyard, put a counter on this, +1/+1 counter on this. This has flying as long as a card exiled with it has flying. The same is true for first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. Slow burn, soul flare.
Wait, is it actually slow burn? Am I missing a part of this? Whenever
ETB or attacks.
Enters the battlefield or attacks. So you just exile your whatever your stupid thing is with all these abilities on it, and
I guess
it, right?
Sure, I guess if like Soul Flare, I'm used to having to exile like a couple different things.
Yeah,
to get everything.
You can just do one.
No. I'm saying like back in my day, we didn't have one creature with all the keywords on it, right? Like the Soul Flare decks, like when Mono Black Aggro was popular, for example. In order to get hexproof, you had to play like some very specific garbage card that had hexproof. Right. And now I'm sure that is not really the case. Like Atraxa just has, 2/3 of these keywords or whatever.
Right.
And
now,
getting hexproof,
granted, it's going to be on a 3/3 creature, which mitigates some of it, but some of these abilities are quite good, and you put them on a 3/3 creature, they're still quite good.
Yeah, maybe this is not as bad as I thought it was because it's easier to like make this happen.
Yeah,
but
I think this card is good. That's my point. Like, I think it's pretty powerful.
I'm thinking the Soul Flare decks back in the day where you had to like exile 3 creatures to get it to have like 4 keywords or something.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, maybe that's just not the case anymore. I don't know. I would have to actually look at like what the decks look like now. But
yeah, this would require some gatherer searches, which I'm clearly not going to do. But Like I could see the power level of this card being quite high, actually.
Yeah, I could see that too. I mean, like I said, we do have Atraxa, right? So that gets you a lot of the way
It's a
there.
good
You're still
start.
looking for hexproof. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the best slash like least offensive card you could slot into your deck with hexproof is or whatever. But Pioneer also had a lot of pretty decent self mill options that we don't really have in standard, right? So
Yeah, that's true.
maybe it's harder. But if you are just assembling A plus B, then it's not that bad.
Yeah, especially like we do have good, like very good uh draw discard options in the form of Fable. So there's other ways to go about this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just means that you have to like natty draw all the stuff, which
Mm-hmm.
is a lot tougher than just like, oh, I'm going to mill my deck 4 times or
Yeah,
mill my deck for 4 twice.
right. I think you need to get like a functional deck that isn't an all-in combo deck built around Orbo Scavengers, but has like this backdoor of just making a ridiculously powerful 3 mana play out of nowhere.
Yeah, like if you're going to reanimate Atraxa, but you just have a couple copies of this.
Yep. Seems fine.
But I guess like the Atraxa keywords aren't that good on, I guess by the time this attacks, it'll be a 4/4, which is not bad, but
Yeah, perhaps this incentivizes playing like a different reanimation target. And I know that's weird given how good of a reanimation target Atraxa is, but when you're making these split up game plans, there could be justification for it.
in terms of Pioneer, I don't know if not having enough copies of Soul Flare was what was holding that deck back. And I guess Soul Flare is kind of seeing play in like the Neoform decks as a backup plan.
Yep.
Which is kind of cool, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe this fits there a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah, I could see it.
All right, Vesuvian Drifter, 2U, 2/4, creature shapeshifter, flying. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. At the beginning of each combat, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card this way, this becomes a copy of that card until end of turn, except it has flying.
That feels pretty exploitable too, honestly.
Yeah,
Good base
again,
stats, like
again,
3 mana 2/4 flyer is okay.
what is the best thing that you can be doing with this? I don't know. Baseline, I go to Atraxa for sure, but I'm sure that
Always, yeah.
there are better things. Like maybe Galta and Maverin is better or something. I don't know.
Maybe it seems like there's decent options out there, and if there's ways to manipulate the top of your deck. Obviously, we don't have Brainstorm, but Brainstorm type effects could be quite good with this card. So I find this one interesting, and again, potentially powerful.
The Hidetsugo kind of brainstorms.
Mm.
That's 5 mana trying to do very different things, but just throwing that
Maybe
out
there's
there.
a package though where it all comes together.
Yeah, who knows? All right, rebuild the city. 3 BRG sorcery. Choose target land. Create 3 tokens that are a copy of it, except they're 3/3 creatures in addition to their other types, and they have vigilance and menace. They are affected by summoning sickness.
It's a weird one.
Yep.
Weird one for sure. 6 mana ramping to approximately 10 mana on your next turn. So going huge, getting threats, this into something ridiculous probably ends the game. And you go 4-drop into something ridiculous. That's a very real ramp deck. I don't know. This again strikes me as sort of maybe an ultimatum type card where you just do this and you win pretty quickly after that. And that seems fine.
I mean, this is also 9 power and they have vigilance.
Yeah. Again,
so
this strikes me as a strong card. And I like this card a lot, actually. I know I previously said that I was going to give title of my favorite card in the set to this immersion aura, but now I think it's going to rebuild the city because it's very simple, does something unique, and I could see some potential uses for it.
Yeah, copying a land is kind of unique. Certainly making them also like creatures is like kind of weird, but it's like not a lot of text and easy to understand.
Yeah, really nice card.
Is there anything cool you can do with like copying a specific land? In standard, at least.
I'd have to think about that pretty carefully. Nothing immediately comes to mind. I'm sure there's something out there, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything, but I'm sure it exists. Joel Rail, Voice of Zelfir, 2GU33, Legendary Creature Human Druid. Beginning of combat on your turn, up to one target land you control becomes an XX green and blue bird creature with flying and haste until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. It's still a land. Whenever a land creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Thinking carefully.
So it doesn't untap it. So you need an untap.
But it does activate right away.
It does activate right away.
It does give the land flying.
Yep. And, presumably if you're green, blue, your hand is going to be reasonably full, and then certainly when this thing is like connecting, your hand is going to stay flush, right? So this doesn't seem terrible. It's just expensive, but
it is expensive. I'm having a hard time with this one. Like my first instinct is to write it off as terrible, but as I think about it more and more, I think it's good but not playable. Is that like an actual place for a card to hit? I don't even know if that's possible. Where I can
absolutely.
I believe in like this card doing something unique, and it seems like I can imagine eras in the past where this card would have been quite playable.
This is the buy a box promo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a cool card. I'm not willing to write it off entirely. I think it may be more powerful than I'm giving it credit for, but even still, I do think it'll come up a little bit short.
Yeah. I think so too. Just like obviously there's a lot of competition in the 5 mana slot. Like this on turn 4 without any sort of acceleration or anything isn't giving you a whole lot, right? You're just like 3/3 pass.
Yep.
I guess, well, whenever a land creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Like, I wonder if there is a way to utilize that a little bit better than just itself. Like, obviously, there's like Wrenn and Realmbreaker type of things, but that doesn't help, again, unless you're like ramping.
Yep. Yeah, and of course, we just talked about Rebuild the City, but I want to do something more with my 9 mana that I now have, so.
Exactly. But yeah, if you get to play this on 5, hit your opponent for 5, draw a card, and like you still have this thing threatening, like that's a pretty good setup. That's a good tempo swing, It seems fine.
Not bad. It's not bad at all.
I guess combat damage to a player, draw cards. So like if you're sniping a planeswalker, then you're not getting the card, but obviously that's still fine. Just a little bit of a downside. Or battle, I suppose, too.
That's true.
This kills battles immediately for the most part.
Okay. That's neat.
All right, moving on. Harness Snubhorn, 3-dub, 2/5 creature dinosaur vigilance. Whenever this deals combat damage to a player, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Strong effect, but that's asking a lot from our 2/5 vigilance for 4 mana. So I'm going to pass on this one.
It is a strong ability, though.
It is.
All right, filter out. 1 UU instant, return all non-creature, non-land permanents to their owner's hands.
There you go. There's your upheaval, Gerald. Enjoy.
Dude, this is not. How dare you? How dare you?
I don't know what this card's doing. Not enough, I think, is the answer.
It's like a rebuild for vintage. I don't know.
Yep, that's probably more important than any other use, honestly.
Harder to cast because of like 2 U pips, can't cast it off color Moxons, so whatever.
Yeah, but could have more flexibility. I could see this being like a wish target in some very narrow situations.
Sure. Yeah, this is likely better than random 3 mana bounce. Anyway.
Yep.
Animus Might, 2G sorcery. This costs 2 less to cast if it targets a legendary creature you control. Target creature you control deals damage equal to twice its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. This card's quite good.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a bunch about potentially expanding the color pie of these legendary decks, and this seems like a very good reason to do so. Like a 1G, pretty reliable removal spell for both creatures and planeswalkers is about where I want to be for this cost. And, sorcery speed does kind of suck for sure. But I think you can get around that when it's cheap enough, and this does strike me as a playable tool for any broader legend decks that are stretching into these colors.
Yep. Campus Renovation, 3 R-dub sorcery, return up to 1 target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards.
I mean, we've seen this effect be standard defining at 4 mana. 5 is a little harder, but it comes with some upside, and there are some big time enchantments and artifacts in the format right now. So I don't know. There may actually be like a better version of this effect floating out there right now. If not, though, and this is unique, this could potentially be a very big deal, actually.
It's not unique because let me see. Invoke Justice. Invoke Justice is just permanent.
Okay.
It doesn't give you like the additional cards or whatever, but Invoke Justice is like, well, you can do Sanctuary Warden or the like Gate to Phyrexia or Portal to Phyrexia or whatever the 9-mana artifact.
But we just talked about redundancy, and like here's some more redundancy for those type of setups.
Well, there's also the white-black battle. I don't remember the name of that. I'm going to find that.
Was that also permanent?
I believe it's non-battle card.
Okay. Well, now there's lots of redundancy.
Invasion of Tolvada. 3-B. When this enters the battlefield, return target non-battle permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you can go all in on this idea where just like there are enough banger artifacts and like basically draw discard effects plus, you know, besides Fable that you want to play and reliably set up your bin that you have these sort of broken, expensive things coming back. Maybe. That seems kind of plausible to me.
Yeah, I basically just don't like this because of how narrow it is. And it's also funny where this is your big payoff, and then it's like, oh, well, you also get like a little draw 2 on top of it or whatever. And it's like, well, it doesn't really matter because I put my 9-mana artifact into play. You know?
Yeah, it's strange, but I could see a scenario where like you have to do that thing and also dig towards like sweeper or your next reload. Like sometimes you need to do this multiple times, right? Like they disenchant you, just change them to the next effect. So
no, it's definitely nice. It's just like how often is that actually going to matter?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it's not a ton, but it's still like, okay, yeah, you get a little pork chop at the end. Cool.
Yeah, a little wink and a nod, if you will.
A little wink and a little madness of a circular logic.
Yep.
All right. Blot out 2B instant. Target opponent exiles a creature or planeswalker they control with the greatest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control.
Awesome effect. Awesome effect. Very important to have in standard. So this is, you know, kind of subtly game changing potentially, but you don't really have to say a lot about it. Just good removal.
Okay, so Soul Shatter was the same thing except sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exile, so it's effectively the same thing, but better.
Potentially better, yep.
With the highest mana value, greatest mana value. They changed it from highest to greatest. Is that weird? That's kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, it's the same, but I don't know.
Just
whatever.
a little
All
weirder.
right. Coppercoat Vanguard, 1 2/2 creature human soldier. Each other human you control gets +1/+0 and has ward 1.
There you go. Get your standard human deck going.
Yeah, another little human solid card. Cool. Feast of the Victorious Dead, B-dub enchantment. Beginning of your end step, if one or more creatures died this turn, you gain that much life and distribute that many +1/+1 counters among creatures you control.
What is at the beginning of your end step, if one or more creatures died this turn?
It's like if 20 creatures died,
you gain 20 life and
20-player free-for-all game. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this is potentially a player in the 3-player metagame, but we'll have to see.
Maybe. It's hard to say. Tellurian Contempt, 3 UU enchantment. When this enters the battlefield, put a rejection counter on each creature your opponents control. At the beginning of your end step, for each opponent, choose up to 1 target creature they control with a rejection counter on it. That creature's owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. So like Slow Burn, Wrath of God.
This card.
But like for each opponent, I guess.
Yeah, this Wrath of God also works for each opponent. Turns out this card is not good. It's not good.
Yeah. I mean, like, this doesn't kill your creatures, so it's, yeah, I guess it's wrath, but upside in those instances.
That's being very generous.
It is. It's slow plague wind, I guess, is a better way to put it. There you go.
Yeah, that doesn't actually kill anything.
Yeah, I guess they get to choose top or bottom, but okay. I don't like it. Markov Baron, 2B, 2/2, creature, vampire, noble, convoke, lifelink, other vampires you control at +1/+1, madness 2B.
Bizarre ass card, but potentially very good if there's an aggro vampires deck, right? Like a lord with convoke is actually a pretty big deal, I think, especially if
Yeah.
you have enough like 1-drops. And if you're able to go like 1-drop, 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 convoke this thing, you're probably miles ahead. Like that's a really explosive start.
I mean, madness and convoke is like kind of cool too.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Because they do work together, right?
I would assume so, because madness is just like alternate casting cost. So
I would also assume so. Hey, how about we throw every possible mechanic into standard? Is there any downside to that?
nah.
Okay.
I mean, dude, it's 8-set standard. Who cares?
Yeah.
who could possibly remember what was like here legitimately and what wasn't, you know?
Not me, that's for sure.
Yeah, this card is weird but simple and definitely cool. I don't think anything we needed for standard, but I don't know. Maybe there's some explorer Soren stuff or pioneer Soren stuff.
Maybe somebody else will have to do a Scryfall search.
So before the show, Ren jumped. Oh God. Okay.
Ren, I can hear it.
Yeah. I have like this massive stack of assorted things. It's like shelves with a printer with some boxes on top of it, and then like this narrow wedge between it and the ceiling. And one of my cats managed to jump from a place into that narrow wedge, and he was there for the entire podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then he finally decided he wanted to come down, and it looked like he was just going to take the entire pile of stuff with him, but he managed to avoid it. Hi, Ren. Welcome back.
Very graceful cat.
Yeah. Now he's just over here bunting my hand. Probably mad that I didn't save him earlier. Anyway.
Well, if you need to lend out those cats for a while, I have a peacock infestation at my home. So maybe those cats could work for me for a bit and clean that out.
It sounds like the peacock was kind of kicking your cat's ass, though.
That's an unproven theory. Basically, something was kicking the cat's ass, and I assumed it was just standard wild animal until a peacock showed up at my front door today, and now all bets are off. Literally anything could be going on in those woods near my house, and I don't know, because I was not expecting a peacock to stroll through the neighborhood. But
Ren is being so nice and cuddly. He's on my lap. He looks very sleepy still. He's just like bunting my chin. He's being
all that box exploring.
Yeah. This is normally how he reacts when I've like just fed him. So I don't know. Maybe he just like found the new space and for some reason is like super thankful to me.
Yeah, really appreciative of a new spot to hide.
I'm gonna have to move the helper ledge that he jumped from because
yes, you are.
He did make it that time, but I can't guarantee that he's gonna make it in future attempts. So anyway, 3 cards left. Reckless Handling, 1R sorcery. Search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle, then discard a card at random. If an artifact card was discarded this way, this deals 2 damage to each opponent.
I might say something stupid.
Okay.
I think this card is modern playable, potentially.
Like trash for treasure nonsense?
Maybe that, or I often talk about a Jund deck, and I built a long time ago in Legacy that used Gamble to find key pieces, and a lot of those key pieces that I was finding, it was actually Chalice of the Void, like where normally you just lose to Storm, you had no real way of ever interacting with them, or like Burn, or just a huge swath of decks that I actually used Gamble for Chalice of the Void to beat throughout the weekend playing Legacy Jund. And this can just like do the same thing against Rhinos, where you can go grab your stupid Chalice when you need it, or there's just a lot of really good artifact hate cards, and I find this effect, while inconsistent, when you combine it with 0 cost artifact hate cards, Tormod Script, Chalice of the Void, a host of other ones, you can actually find yourself in a really, really good position having access to that reliably. And I think it's kind of a cool thing to do. It's not something I see a lot of other people do, but I think you could get away with it at 2 mana as well as 1 mana. So I'd be interested to see if we could give this a shot in Modern.
2 mana is way worse. I will say that.
For sure. For sure.
And Modern's not really in a place where, outside of things like Rhinos and Living Ends, where the artifact hate cards are that powerful or that necessary.
Yeah, you have to find a pretty broad suite of hate cards that are like really outcome determinative. That's the hard challenge with a card like this.
Yeah, I mean, there were metagames when that sort of thing would have been awesome.
Yep.
Right. But it's like we don't really have any dredge sort of stuff that's just like scooping to a Tormod Script or whatever. So
yeah, or there's a lot of instances like that's why it's interesting because you could like do Stone Brain type stuff. You could do what was the card that was like an anti-Tron card, which is not very good against Tron, like Void something or other.
Void Mirror, yeah, which
Void
also
Mirror
is good against Cascade.
Yeah, so like there's some options out there. I don't know. I don't think this is a good idea yet, but I do think this card is interesting.
It is interesting. I will leave it at that. Death Rattle Oni, 6B, creature demon spirit, 5/4, flash. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. When this enters the battlefield, destroy all other creatures that were dealt damage this turn.
This is just a 1 mana flash creature, as far as I'm concerned. Like, there's got to be ways to do this reliably.
You talking about in your 3-player games or just?
No, in real games, actually, this time. Like, let's just go back to, red-black sacrifice decks, or
yeah.
It just doesn't seem that hard. And I think, like, this card actually might set off the most alarm bells for me in the entire set of a card that could actually, like, change formats, be format defining. It could be this one, which is a little weird given it's sort of an innocuous common or uncommon. There's no commons in the set, an uncommon that we're talking about at the very end here. But yeah, Death Rattle Oni might be the most powerful card in this entire set.
I think 1 or 2 is pretty easy. It's trivial. Getting to 3 is tough. And then at the end of that, you're getting a 1 mana 5/4, which is not even that impressive. Like, you can get 2 mana 5/4s from like the vehicle, like Mukutai, Soul Ripper, or whatever, like that sort of stuff, without even having to work for it. And that sort of stuff doesn't even really see play. So I don't know. Maybe if there's a way to do this where you're consistently putting out like bodies of that size or whatever, maybe it's more impressive. But it's just like, oh, I'm doing my sacrifice thing, and here's like a random 5/4. It's like, well, the random big body doesn't really matter all that much.
But I think it's going to be so easy to achieve. Like, the fact that it's flash means that any kind of trading you're doing, any kind of like block sacrifice, sack my food, here comes my Cauldron Familiar thing that you're setting up extremely reliably.
Okay, listen, if we're talking like Cat Oven, then yes, this is a lot easier. But I thought we were talking about standard.
No, I'm sorry. I broke the mold a little bit, and I'm going to other weird format. Pioneer, certainly you can talk about it in that context. Pioneer
is much easier to accomplish this, yes.
Yeah, and I think it'll be good enough. Like, flash is really the determining factor here for me. Is it just any time you want to do these shenanigans, this card is ready to go, and that's really exciting.
And then the it sort of reads like trinket text or whatever, but the execute on this card is certainly better in older formats with like Mayhem Devil and stuff. Not that Mayhem Devil really needs like a ton of help or whatever, but
no.
Even
if going back to Cauldron Familiar, right? Like, just make your block with your Cauldron Familiar. It dies, sack your food. You have the 1 damage laid up. It's actually quite impactful.
Yeah, I was mostly saying, like, if you have Mayhem Devil, then you probably don't need a lot of help to just kill all of the creatures.
To wrath everything, sure.
Yeah, but this does make it a lot easier, and there are definitely situations against, like, Mono Green Devotion, for example, where they have a bunch of 4 toughness things, and it takes a lot of time, or multiple Mayhem Devils or whatever. So this could help. Yeah, I could see that.
Yep.
All right, finally, Cosmic Rebirth, 1 G-dub, instant, return target permanent card in your grave, or choose target permanent card in your graveyard. If it has mana value 3 or less, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, put it into your hand, you gain 3 life.
Broken,
Is it?
maybe.
Gonna like witness this thing or something? What are we doing?
How about a super flexible spell that can ramp you from 3 to 5 that gains you 3 life if you've done the setup?
I mean, 3 mana for a ramp spell is not that great.
No, but that's what we pay now. And plus 3 life.
It is flexible, yes.
Yep. It scales into the late game where you're returning now real things as opposed to it just being a ramp spell, which I think is quite enticing. Now you have to reliably have a land in your graveyard. So that is quite a big ask. I realize that. But if you're playing in a format or in a setup where you're doing that all the time, and you have potentially some other ways to benefit from this, like I don't think your lands are going to be the only permanent in your deck with 3 cost or less. And I don't know. For some reason, the first card that came to mind with this card is like Kitchen Finks. And I'm not saying you should go put this in your modern deck and bring back Kitchen Finks, but
yeah. Also, don't put Kitchen Finks in your modern deck.
Yeah, all good points. But you do see the point I'm making, where like the swing on doing that effect is just massive. Like if there was a fair card like that in Standard that you were able to buy back, and it's netting you a total of 7 life and 2 blocking bodies over the course of several turns, that's very, very fine rate. And especially when you start to say, oh, this is also ramping me into my bigger threats on some occasions. Again, very much about the pieces that surround it. But I can envision a lot of spots where this card is extremely, extremely strong. And I think it's enough to put this high up on my top 10 Aftermath cards list.
Oh, no, this card doesn't seem bad to me. Obviously, you would prefer to be hitting mana value 3 stuff so that you're just paying the same amount of mana, right? Like you don't want to be playing this to return a 1-drop or anything. Using this to return a land is fine. I think you can find better ways to ramp where you don't have to like work to put a land in your graveyard or whatever.
Sure.
But this does have a lot of flexibility, and normally we just see cards like this exile themselves, and this one doesn't. So yeah, you can do stuff with like looping this, and I don't know what the best thing to do with that is, but it's probably something.
Yeah, probably something. It shouldn't be slept on either that like this can return any permanent to your hand. And granted, you don't put it into play, but like if it's, turn 14 of the game and I just want back my I want back my Atraxa. I don't give a shit that I'm paying extra for it. Like it really doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah. I guess the best thing I can think about using this for is to return like a Fable or something. Which, that's perfectly reasonable. Like if you're playing a Fable deck with some other cheaper stuff and either your Fable lives and you win the game, which is generally how it works, or they destroy it somehow, then all right, playing this is like a one of or whatever on top of it doesn't seem that bad. And Fable is generally pretty good at all points in the game. You get the bonus 3 life tacked onto it too, and fairly
I'm actually getting higher and higher on this card the more we talk about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's like you have to think about like what you're doing with it, but I think that good things exist for you to do with this in Standard. Just have to, again, like do a little gather research or whatever and figure out where you actually want this, because it's not going to go in every deck, even if you do have good 2 and 3 drop cards or whatever. It is very much a time and a place thing, but it's decent. It's good.
Well, instant speed too, like surprise blockers out of nowhere. That's a pretty rare thing.
Yeah, instant's good too. And that's it. That's 38 cards. Canvas Royal Funeral is the 38th, which we talked about a million years ago. And then this is like 50 or 55. I don't remember how many. It's something around there though.
Yeah, I think it's 50, but don't quote me on that. A real mixed bag here, Gerald, is how I would put it. Some cards that made me laugh, as spoiler season often does.
Some that made us cry. It was a real roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, but also some neat stuff, some good build arounds, some just like powerful cards that reach back to maybe eternal formats potentially. And now it remains to be seen, what do these cards look like on the secondary market? I think that is a very big question with this set. How much of this is going to be opened? What if one of these cards is a modern staple 3 years from now? I mean, if it's 4 years, it's been reprinted, but 3 years from now, and there's not a high number of Aftermath that has been opened, what happens with that card? I think it's a very real question, and I'm curious to see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they were somewhat concerned about it not being highly sought after, not highly opened, then gearing it a little bit more towards Commander is probably the way to go, because that sort of ensures that a decent amount of it is going to get opened.
Just like a note, this card was available for pre-order via Amazon through Wizards, as all sets are now. I think pre-order price was slashed dramatically, and is much cheaper than it's originally offered for. A lot of retailers upset about that, I hear. So
As Wizards is just undercutting everyone.
Yep. And so maybe not flying out the door on the distributor level. So we'll just see. We'll see where this lands.
That's definitely a weird little wrinkle.
Yep.
God, why? I don't understand why they would do that. Like, what would cause them to do that? Like, you can't have the information necessary to be like, oh, well, this is not going to sell very well, so we better slash it. It's like, why would they slash it?
Distributor pre-orders can inform a lot, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's my guess on things.
It's like, oh, distributors, you didn't order a lot of this, and our response is going to be to like undercut you. Like, that'll learn you.
Well, you ordered enough, right? Like, so the distributors took half of it. They get another 25% out the door via this fire sale on Amazon, and then they send the other 25% to the dump, and you're all set at that point.
So weird. I don't get it. Whatever.
It's weird times.
Yeah.
Times in the TCG industry. Lorcana dropped some rules this week. You going to play any Lorcana?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm not hearing good things about that game.
Not surprised. Set is weird, but I basically expected that. So, maybe a little weirder than I expected somehow, but some of it was cool. I don't know. I don't mind this. I think it's fine. I think it would be cooler if it was, people are really deep into standard mattering or whatever, and then something drops midway through to shake it up or like breathe a little bit of life back into it or something. I would like that situation a lot more, but instead I think that for like competitive invested people, this is mostly just going to drop to crickets unless there is a card that actually impacts like Pioneer and Modern, but even then it's going to be small ball. So
more annoying than anything else. And Gerald, if that's what you're looking for, let me tell you about a new format that was created not too long ago called Alchemy. And the way Alchemy works is no, I'll spare you.
No, when we ban that word, it's got to mean that the word is banned. We just can't, even for it to be the butt of jokes, we are just punching down. And I'm not going to say we're better than that, but we should just not.
No, we're clearly not. I'll do my best.
Clearly not. Yeah. So I don't know. This is fine. Whatever. Situation could be better. It could be set up to be more beneficial for this, but I think it's fine. I ain't mad.
Yeah, I'll also be not mad about it.
All right, cool. Game.
Good luck.